Hello, this is Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer.
Welcome home. Soar into tower. We are ready for takeoff.
Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hey, it's Amy from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey Clubbers, it's Scott from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey, it's Kathleen from DVC Clubhouse.
Welcome aboard. It's Phil from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Debrief podcast brought to you by DVC Clubhouse. This is Amy, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-hosts, Phil, Scott, and Kathleen. Hey, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hi guys.
Welcome aboard, guys. Good to see you back, Amy.
What? Oh,
Well, I mean, based on what we were seeing earlier when you couldn't get your laptop to work, it's like this dancing emoji, this Amy-shaped emoji across the screen. That was something.
well, technology was not on my side earlier, but
Technology was not your friend.
no, it was not. But, after some minor technical difficulties, I'm here. And I nailed the opening, so,
I'm convinced that you have a script somewhere in front of you now that you're following just to hold true on this.
That's probably why we
I
had to
don't.
wait for the computer. She's got it somewhere on her computer.
Yeah. My teleprompter was not working.
Right.
Yeah, that's why she was so dead set on using her laptop. It wasn't going to work on the phone.
So, well, welcome back. I think this is the first time the four of us have been on together in a few weeks, right?
It's been a while.
Last week, was it just you? Was that last week or the week before?
Week before was just Scott. Last week was Amy and I. I think we're like 3 or 4 weeks behind on all 4 of us.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it's been a while.
Life.
We're back. The pod
Yep.
squad is back together.
I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, depending upon your outlook.
No, I think it's a great thing. I'm happy. I'm happy to be
Ready
back.
to put January
Yes.
in the rearview mirror and
Yeah.
move forward.
Here, here.
You're ready to put it in the rivers of America and let it be demolished.
Easy there. Easy, easy. Let's not go triggering me just yet. We're early in the
Wow.
episode. That was
Seriously,
mean, huh?
we're 2 minutes in and she's already just, poking.
Not poking. She's twisting the dagger in the place where my heart should be.
Wow.
Well,
Go ahead, Amy. I know
I'm
you got a
sorry.
response to
I'm-
that.
I'm
Yeah, I was
sorry.
waiting.
I'm sorry to, if that hit a nerve, but we just need to move to the acceptance phase here. It's happening.
I quit.
Speaking of things that have already gone away, the Galactic Starcruiser has been in the news in the past week because it seems as though Disney has put some offices into that failed hotel concept that they had. I don't even think it lasted a full year, did it?
I was just gonna say I don't think if it wasn't even a year.
No, they wanted a Star Cruiser and they got a Scar Cruiser.
Yeah, this is my shocked face in case anyone's wondering. I called this before it opened.
Yeah, so now all of that space that they had for that interactive hotel experience for Star Wars fans is now office space. They might as well have just put a Spirit Halloween in there and called it a day.
It wasn't. I don't think it had been announced 10 minutes and I had a meme up that had a Spirit Halloween sign on the front of it.
I still don't even know where that is. Like, I can't picture where it's at.
Think of the backside of Galaxy's Edge with a little bit of land, a little bit of a edge of a parking lot, and then it's right there.
Yeah, essentially, if you go across the parking lot, it's on the other side of the parking lot, really up in the corner closest to the backside of the studios.
Yeah, there was a space that for the guests who were staying in the Star Cruiser, they were able to enter into Galaxy's Edge. So it's like right back there.
Oh, okay. So like when we're driving on property and you see Galaxy's Edge from from the road, it's right over there?
Not in the same spot. It's kind of a little bit off the beaten path a little bit, because I don't think you can actually see the Starcruiser from the road.
No, but
it's
in that vicinity.
I think if you were over by Smuggler's Run, it would be like off the backside of that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you're coming down World Drive, like a half mile before you see the backside of Galaxy's Edge, it's like a half mile in past some interchanges and overpasses
Okay.
and such.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just never really knew exactly where it was.
Well, you weren't alone, clearly.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of people don't know what it looks like other than pictures online.
When we were at Victoria Falls not that long ago, we were actually talking to one of the bartenders that came from there. Remember?
Yeah.
That's where he came from. And I don't remember what he said of why it closed, but he had some off the wall answer.
Oh, I mean, the obvious answer was it was just overpriced. It was a limited experience that was way overpriced, and they didn't get enough people interested in it.
But I remember him saying, like, he's pretty much said that wasn't it. Do you not remember that?
No.
Maybe that's just me thinking that he said that.
I don't know.
know.
I mean, they were offering all kinds of deals. I mean, you took a very small demographic of a very small demographic, and then you put a huge price on it and tried to sell it. It just didn't work.
No.
Yeah, I mean it's something that was intriguing to me. I never ever in a million years would have ever paid for like a family of 4 to have that experience. The only way I could have ever have seen myself doing it would have been if I went with friends and we split it 4 ways so that I was only paying for myself, and even at that I think I probably would have been paying a little over $1,000. So it was pricey. I mean, it was all inclusive, but for the food at least, and all the entertainment. But you would go and you would stay for 2 nights, and you did have it did include your theme park admission into Hollywood Studios. You would enter through Galaxy's Edge. You were not limited to staying in Galaxy's Edge, but most people stayed because I think that they also had some sort of mission that was tied into the storyline of staying
That's
at the
correct.
Starcruiser, so that you were coming into Galaxy's Edge to kind of like complete that mission. But you did not have to stay there. You were able to go into other parts of Hollywood Studios if you wanted to.
The world's most expensive Comic-Con.
It was $1,000?
A person minimum to sleep in the world's smallest bunk bed.
That's a cruise.
Yeah.
That's how they sold it specifically.
Right. It was really designed. The entire experience was kind of designed like a cruise in terms of sitting down in a dining room and having dinner and the onboard entertainment and like the activities, and the captain of the Starcruiser would come on and announce where they were, and there was a like kind of like an activities director who would come on. And I watched when the Starcruiser opened. You'll remember they did a media event, and those people were not able to post until I think it was like several days after they had gotten off of. I'm acting as if it really was a ship.
As if they really disembarked from the cruise.
Right. Exactly. But once they were home for a couple of days, and all of these content creators were putting out these videos that were like multiple hours long because there was just so much, because it wasn't just about giving you like a tour. It was about showing you some of these immersive experiences. And really the entire time. I mean, I think that you really only would have enjoyed it if you were able to kind of get into like the kind of cosplay role, really getting into the character that you were kind of assigned and doing the things that where you're interacting with the characters that were on board. Otherwise, it really.
In the words of Owen Wilson in Armageddon, scariest environment imaginable. Just say scariest environment imaginable.
Yeah, I don't think I could have gone into that at all. Probably because I'm not a Star Wars fan. But
I don't know. I'm kind of changing my opinion about it.
Really?
Yeah. Like the more I hear about it, it's like all inclusive.
You're not on the water.
I don't
You
care.
don't go to Castaway.
You go to space.
All right, now to quote Blazing Saddles, You're on your own, son.
I mean, so after watching those videos, I was like, you know what? I could get into this because I could kind of get into like the fantasy cosplay kind of, aspect of it all for a couple of nights. But that's definitely not for everybody. And you
Mm-mm.
have to be somebody who is a little bit more extroverted in order to be interacting with the characters and the other people that are, on board. So I think it was like a niche market within a niche market, It was really like, I mean, I think maybe they were trying to kind of appeal to like the type of people who would like go to Comic-Con, who like get dressed up and they kind of have these like immersive experiences when they go to these events, but
Is there an echo in this podcast?
Echo.
Echo.
I just said the smallest demographic inside the smallest demographic. You called it a niche within a niche. And then I said, it's like a Comic-Con. And you're like, hey, you know what it's like? A Comic-Con. Well, thanks for contributing, Amy.
oh, I didn't hear you say Comic-Con. Sorry. I don't know.
Well, it's not what we're here to talk about anyway. We've already
Well, right.
beaten this horse to death. What are we talking
Right.
about, Amy?
Well, we're actually talking about what we wanted, what if we had our druthers, if we were Imagineers, what we would actually do with the space.
I want a druther. That sounds like fun.
Druther.
I now need to use that word in a sentence.
Well, there's a reason why I'm not an Imagineer.
Do you not have enough druthers?
No, because I have a very unpopular opinion. I would just make it into another resort.
Well, shockingly, that is actually what we're discussing tonight.
Not many people want more places for people to stay, though.
Did you just volunteer to go first? Well, go for it.
You can go first.
No. I want to hear this.
I don't have anything specific. I just would make it into another resort specifically for Hollywood studios.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I guess I'll kind of lead in with that is when we were texting earlier, the reason this occurred to me is when you look at all the other resorts, and I think there actually is a place for more people to stay, especially as we're seeing more and more DVC resorts. This was a cash stay option, and they still need to have those. But every other theme park has its resort. The Magic Kingdom has the Seven Seas Lagoon and Bay Lake resorts. Epcot has Crescent Lake. Animal Kingdom has Animal Kingdom Lodge. Hollywood Studios doesn't have a resort. And as I said in our text, I don't think Riviera counts. I don't think it is specifically a Hollywood Studios resort. So I think that there's actually a big opening here if they were to choose to do so, to have a Hollywood Studios specific resort. You could make it a deluxe and charge all the money.
Why doesn't it count, though? That's what I want to know, because I feel like all the hate mail from the Riviera people is about to come in. You have your Skyliner Loop, which specifically goes to Epcot, Hollywood Studios, and a couple of resorts, just like you have a monorail loop. So I guess that's where
I mean, I feel like Crescent Lake, you can walk in, you can see everything from there. The Seven Seas resorts, you can walk in. You do have the monorail that travels through the resorts and out around the park. Animal Kingdom is attached to the backside of Kilimanjaro Safaris. You're actually on the savannah. Riviera is definitely close, and I think they've sold it as a Hollywood Studios resort, but it is still that much more detached from Hollywood Studios that I think they could do better by repurposing this property.
Well, I mean, one could argue that Boardwalk is, if you were going to pick a resort that was going to be kind of more classified in the Hollywood Studios neighborhood, Boardwalk is closer than Riviera. I mean, and especially those rooms that if you're staying in the villas at that one end, you're there really quickly. And also just from a theming perspective, there's a little bit more of continuity between the Boardwalk and Hollywood Studios, just from like the era, like that kind of throwback time. But the notion of putting a resort over there where the Star Cruiser is kind of, the fact that they're putting Monstropolis over there, because really like that piece of property is kind of like in between the parking lot that extends beyond where right now the Muppets are and Mama Melrose, and then it curves over to the side where it's beyond that. Because I was saying at one point when we were talking about what we would do with Hollywood Studios, I was like, now that the Star Cruiser is closed, let's bump out and make Muppet Land over there, and you could extend it by getting rid of some of that cast parking lot and then getting rid of the Star Cruiser and making a much bigger land over there. So putting a resort where, I mean, presumably you would need to enter into, either Monstropolis or Galaxy's Edge to get into the park, because there's no other way around to the unless they had trams running from the hotel to the front of Hollywood Studios. You would be walking into a themed land. So I think that the challenge there is you're either walking into Monstropolis or you're walking into Galaxy's Edge.
I just like that name, Monstropolis.
It's fun
I
to
just
say, isn't
like
it? It's like plutonium, Monstropolis.
And now, because as we've also discussed in the past, Hollywood Studios has become such like a hodgepodge. Like Studios doesn't even really properly capture what that park is. It's like all of these different lands. So like you could say like, oh,
Oh,
something
you're playing
like
right into my idea. I love this.
something like a Pixar pier at Disneyland might make more sense from a theming standpoint, because we have Monstropolis and we have Toy Story Land, or we have something that is much more kind of and because it would be taking the spot of something that already was super immersive, creating some sort of immersive type of experience in a hotel, like almost sort of like the cruise ships, where the cruise ships have these really immersively themed dining rooms and lounges that are very heavily based in IP, where most of the hotels, even though the decor has started to kind of take a turn towards IP, the overall theme was never intended to be based on an actual Disney intellectual property for any of the hotels. So other than, art of animation. But would it be something that would be very themed, kind of like art of animation, but a little bit more upscale?
That kind of like makes me think about my idea that I had. I said to Kathleen when we first started talking about it, I wanted to expand the park, but I also liked her idea a little bit of having another resort. And I said, what would go good with Hollywood Studios? I know it's a hodgepodge of all these different things. Disney owns Marvel, and Disney does not take advantage of Marvel at all, other than the movies. The only Marvel ride that they have is Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's probably one of, if not the most popular rides. Universal, I know they kind of have that down pat with the Hulk. They have the Spider-Man ride. They have Doctor Doom. But when you think of Disney Cruise Line, they also have the Avengers rotational dining. There's a lot of things that they do. With that, I would just put an Avengers campus like what's over in Disneyland. I would put
They
that over there.
can't. They can't
Well,
legally. That's the problem.
well, okay, something like it. And you've got your Toy Story Land, you've got your Galaxy's Edge, turn it into a Marvel Avengers, whatever you want to call it, because they would bring in so many people. And I'm not just talking little kids, I'm talking teens, I'm talking adults. Everybody loves Marvel, from Incredible Hulk, Spider-Man, Captain America, the Avengers. There's so many things they could do. They could do a resort. They could do an interactive, heavily themed resort, kind of like what Amy just said, where it's kind of like where you're getting into that like in your face, like arts of animation, but maybe like a little bit more upscale. But they could do restaurants. Hollywood Studios is in dire need of a decent restaurant. I don't know if they could do like a character themed restaurant there where it would bring more people. But I've said, man, like I like the idea of a hotel, but that park is so small. The ride times are ridiculous when you go there. They need so badly to expand it, to put more attractions there, rides, character experiences, make the crowd disperse a little bit more than what they are. And I just think that would be a fantastic opportunity and just a backdoor entrance into Hollywood Studios.
I don't disagree with your thought process, and we are operating along the same lines. I think the problem with that is based on the buyout of Marvel. Any character that you see over at Islands of Adventure, all of those Marvel characters that everybody is familiar with, they cannot legally use those on the East Coast That's why Avengers Campus is in Disneyland. They're allowed to do that. They can't use the Hulk. They can't use the previous versions of Spider-Man. 3 different corporations actually own different rights to Spider-Man. They can't do the Avengers. That's why you've seen such a heavy push towards new characters such as Guardians of the Galaxy, because those are outside the agreement. I completely agree with your thought process and what it's going to turn into, but the Avengers, unfortunately, cannot be used.
None of them.
Nothing east. Most of the Marvel characters cannot be used east of the Mississippi River. That's what
Okay.
the
Well, there's
contract
other
says.
characters.
I mean, I know.
Right, they have to be new characters. That's the
Yeah.
problem. Otherwise, I completely agree. But that is the stumbling block they're going to continue to run into. And I think, Amy, the supposition is east of the Mississippi, but I don't know that anybody has ever actually been able to find the real wording. But that's what I think everybody has been able to glean, is that's the dividing line.
That sounds so 1800s, like nothing
What
east of
about
the
like
Mississippi.
Disney Cruise Line?
Not active inside a park. It's the
Oh,
competition with Universal and Universal's rights to use it inside the
Mhm.
park that is the problem. And they just won't make the movies, because why make a movie using an IP that you can't use elsewhere inside your parks or make more
Mhm.
money off of?
I think also because the cruise ships are not registered in the U.S.
Yeah,
They fall
usually
outside of
Bahamas.
whatever U.S. agreement would, whatever the contract is in the U.S. So
I mean, there's plenty of other newer characters. I mean,
I'm taking my idea back. Forget about it. I'm just turning it
No,
into
I think
offices.
I think it's a fantastic idea. I just had to point out that the reason they can't do it is legal. I think if they had the opportunity to put Avengers or Avengers Campus or do a hotel like that, I think they do it in a heartbeat. It's a no-brainer. The reason they haven't is just simply because they can't.
Yeah.
what's your big idea, Phil?
So I'm along the same lines as Scott, but I'm taking it in a different direction. And I think Hollywood Studios, while it's a hodgepodge, we've talked about that at length, about how it's just where nothing else fits, throw it in the park. I think it needs to be a resort. I think they are sorely lacking a dedicated resort for Hollywood Studios. Now, the one problem they have over that, well, there's a few problems. The first problem is that hotel is very small. For lack of a better term, it's the size of a boutique hotel. Number 2, which is interesting, none of those hotel rooms have windows. And they actually ran into a bunch of code issues with building that, because all of the windows have video screens that are supposed to show outer space. So there's no balconies, there's no outside views, nothing like that. But if I had to do it with nostalgia in mind and with putting people down there and trying to bring back what Hollywood Studios was, I would turn it into a deluxe golden age of Hollywood hotel. I think there's so many ideas they already have that link back to all their different parks. You look at Sunset Boulevard and everything that's there. You look at Buena Vista Street in California Adventure. They've done such a good job of capturing all that stuff that I think you could make an amazing hotel out of it. Just bring it back to 1920s, 1930s, 1940s vibe in hotel, and that level of service and the ornate tapestries and chandeliers and the gilded everything. And think about what they could pull into there. I mean, you walk down Sunset Boulevard, think of the Tower of Terror and the way that's set up, but take out the Twilight Zone theming. Everybody loves that. The bellhops with the caps and the rooms are beautiful. You could do an absolute 5-star dining experience inside of there and make it work. I mean, turn it into what the Brown Derby really should be. Think about all of those original Beverly Hills beautiful restaurants that everybody connects with. You've got a ton of old history that you could make replicas of. You've got all the pictures of Walt, all the old things from the MGM studios, the pictures, Amy, you talked about in Cathay Circle, the ones they've got down in the plaza on Main Street. I think there's a ton they could put into it. For quick serve, you go back to Golden Age of Hollywood. Let's bring Roger Rabbit back into the park. Think about how much fun the meet and greets with Roger Rabbit and stuff like that could be for a quick serve or a character meal or something along those lines. The one problem you run into, and Amy pointed it out, is it is closest to Galaxy's Edge. I just looked from the very front of where that hotel was. Line of sight as the crow flies is 550 feet to the Millennium Falcon. It is that close to the back of the park. So the only problem I can see with theming it that way is once they exit the park, they go from this golden age of Hollywood, Sunset Boulevard vibe into what is it, Black Spire Outpost. Like that's a little bit of a theming problem right there. But especially if we look at potentially taking away maybe some of that cast parking and expanding the park itself, there's a lot of space over there. They could theoretically make a little back walkway to go into that side of the park and theme it correctly. And I think they've got a lot of potential there. You know, Amy, you said boardwalk is the right theme. I would make it kind of that same era, give or take, but make it West Coast instead of East Coast. And I think you could make a really cool hotel that kind of speaks to the roots of MGM versus Disney Hollywood Studios.
Yeah, I do think that the way that they have turned that park into something that was not originally intended makes it thematically kind of off. I think that when we did our episode talking about Hollywood studios and what we would do, I think we talked about having a hotel that would be themed similarly and talked about having it over close to kind of Tower of Terror because that would make so much sense. I just feel like that entire left side of the park, not even left, honestly, the entire park, other than like Sunset Boulevard, is no longer the the golden age of Hollywood. It's just all different individual IPs. And so I feel like that's where, putting a hotel over there that's themed to that, they would need to really find a way to kind of tie in all of those elements of all the different lands that are at Hollywood Studios in order to make it feel like it belonged there. Otherwise, it would just be this kind of upscale hotel next to Galaxy's Edge that
Right,
would
but
feel
maybe
kind
that's the
of
one thing you need to bring the Hollywood back to Hollywood Studios, right? That's been the other argument is it's Hollywood Studios. What inside there other than a couple of little pieces actually feel like Hollywood? Walking down through the main entrance, maybe taking a right down Sunset. Other than that, there's nothing Hollywood about Hollywood Studios.
honestly, what they would need to do is they would need to make something inside the hotel look like a movie theater and that you could enter, like it could be like now showing Monsters Inc. this way, now showing like Star Wars this way, and then it would and have it look like you're kind of going through a turnstile in a movie theater and then you're emerging into this land that is showing you like you're not just even watching the movie but you're like now you're starring in it. So they would need to kind of have that sort of transition inside where like you're walking into a movie, like when you're staying there you're staying in a movie and you've got these different these different like a theater kind of like in the maybe like a main area where like if you follow the path this way you can immerse yourself into that story.
If only they had like an interactive ride there that just showed you like different movie scenes. Maybe they could like call it like the Great Movie Ride or something like that.
Oh, don't get her started.
If only if only
She basically just described the queue of Great Movie Ride. I just want to point that out.
Yes.
right.
Grand Californian does a pretty good job of that, though. I mean, at least the old school Imagineers had the ability to do that. When you walk out of Grand Cal into the park, they actually do that transition really well. Working downtown Disney versus walking out to the street versus walking into the park. Those are different feels to them. They could certainly find some sort of thematic transition to make it work.
Yeah. I think that would be the case, that they would need to really make that hotel be just, it would have to be like a kind of like the Great Movie Ride as a hotel. Like a tribute to the movies, a tribute to Hollywood.
You just want any chance you can to bring the Great Movie Ride back. Very transparent.
I'm sad I didn't get to experience that.
I'm sad you didn't get to see that. It was really cool.
And also, if they did that, like when you think about the movies that were represented in the Great Movie Ride, like if they could have the pictures from like The Wizard of Oz, and they could have all these like throwback pictures throughout, like decorating the hotel, and then and maybe even on each floor it could be kind of dedicated the way like on these newer cruise ships, how each floor is kind of dedicated to a different theme. They could dedicate it to a different like nostalgic movie.
I just feel like that vibe is making a comeback. I think I talked about it before. I stayed in a boutique hotel down in Lauderdale, which is 1950s theme, and it's on the National Historic Register. And it feels like walking into a hotel in Boca Raton. And it was such a cool feel. It's my new favorite hotel around the country. And I just think there's a lot of desire for that simpler time, golden age, 30s, 40s, 50s throwback. I think they could do a lot with it. It's certainly a concept that is not lacking options for theming. There's so many places they could go.
I'm a fan of the 80s. I think if they did a Time Warp Hotel, something in the like 80s, I thought you would get me there. I would be first in line. All the great
Back
movies
to the
from.
Future.
I mean, I know they don't own any of those.
Fast Times at Ridgemont
Yeah,
High.
the 1980s were not really a high point for a lot of Disney films. They barely made it back at that point. Maybe it did Touchstone Hotel.
There's a lot of gratuitous nudity in the 80s.
I think that's why he's a fan.
It's not really on brand for Disney.
I'll be dining at the quick service, the Karate Kid Cafe.
Oh, Elizabeth Shue. Oh my goodness. All right.
So many things.
That's it. I'm gonna daze out here for the rest of this episode just thinking about Elizabeth Shue back in the 80s. Jennifer Connelly. Oh, more Jennifer Connelly, please.
Elizabeth Shue and Andrew Shue, they grew up in my town and went to the high school that my kids go to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
All right, Amy, you want to expound upon ideas you have?
I mean, your idea is a good one. I think if executionally they can make it make sense.
Did you catch the tone in her? She basically just said it didn't suck as bad as I expected. That was the tone behind what she just said. Your idea was, it was good, I guess.
She's like, it's really good if they just didn't do what you said and put it where you want to put it.
If they just did it completely different and themed it after the Great Movie Ride, I'm totally on board.
Amy just signed off.
Exactly. I just closed the top of my laptop. No, I mean, I really am a fan of them doing a hotel in that theme. I feel like it would, based on, I mean, I'm not happy with what they did to Hollywood Studios or how they did it. There are things about Hollywood Studios that I really love, but overall, I'm not happy with what they did, with how they changed the original intent of the park. I think that they could put an awesome hotel closer over to, where Tower of Terror is, and that would be awesome. But because I think it would be cool if you could actually access that hotel by walking through the lobby of Tower of Terror. You've got, the space over, there's a parking lot right beyond where Rock and Roller Coaster is, and then beyond, when you get over in that other area where
that parking lot is about a third of the size of what the Halcyon was. There's some space over there, but the parking lot itself is tiny. It's doable. I'm looking at the map now. They'd need to reset a lot of stuff.
Well, they would need to. I mean, that entire animation courtyard area is a dead zone, so they could absorb some of that space as well, and have, and that could be another entrance to the park over there. But if we were looking over, I mean, the point of this podcast is to talk specifically about, we have this Galactic Starcruiser over there that has now been turned into offices, and how could we theme a resort that would actually make sense over there? And truly, I mean, I know I've said it a lot, but I honestly think that in order to do that, they really need to look to Disney Cruise Line and to what they've been doing in their most recent ships, because they have, I mean, when you look at the Treasure and you see how amazing that lobby is, the way that they themed it to be Agrabah, I think that they could do something very cool from an IP standpoint, since Hollywood Studios has become an IP park, to create an immersive type of experience. We've got, because we will have Monstropolis, we will have Toy Story Land, and we have Star Wars. I mean, I think that that's the biggest problem. It's you have Star Wars in between these two Pixar lands. So how do you make that make sense? How do you make that make sense? It's hard to even make sense of it from being inside the park. So I think that you've got to kind of, I mean, I think, although also now that I'm thinking about this, where the Backlot Express is and where Indiana Jones is, if they were to create an entrance into the park over there, then we're getting into an area where you are kind of walking into more of like a movie studio type of scenario, because you're walking in and you've got, Baseline Tap House is over there, and you've got, what is that theater where what's in that theater where American Idol was? Is that just a meet and greet now?
Yes. Mickey
Yeah.
and yeah.
That's about 2,000 feet. You've got to get past Star Wars, and it's kind of inside the regular lot. So you definitely have to bump out the park into the employee lot to try and make a transition. There's no easy way. I'm just looking at a map. There's no easy way to get from A to B. But yeah, it's that thematic break having to get through the backside of that park that just kills you.
Yeah. So I do think that if you were able to absorb some of the cast parking to create a resort over there based on like the theme of the park on that side, and bringing in kind of like that, introducing that you're being immersed into a movie. Honestly, just make the hotel like an entire throwback to what it used to be, what Hollywood Studios used to be when it was MGM, where you've got kind of like a nod to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and you've got even that auto stunt show that was there for a little while,
Lights, motors, action.
Yeah.
I've got Amy's vote.
Take everything that we loved about MGM and FEMA Hotel.
All right, all silence. I think everyone's in agreement. We'll send this up to Imagineering. Oh, wait, no, Kathleen's tagging in. Here we go.
No, I've never been to MGM, so it would all be new to me. What is that noise?
Yeah, what is that noise?
Sorry, I had to preheat the oven. Did you hear the little chime?
Yeah, I did.
It sounded like Johnny Five is alive. Speaking of the 80s.
No, I think a lot of people would love that. If you've been going to Disney for that long, that's what I hear from a lot of people, that they miss so much from that it was MGM and what was there.
I just think we've got to be careful going straight MGM, because you run into the same problem you ran into with the Starcruiser, which is a demographic within a demographic. I think you can definitely bring elements of that in, but there needs to be a bigger theme that gets the masses.
Yeah.
Offices.
Scott's back to offices. Perfect. Though they are just windowless cubicles turned into hotel rooms, so I suppose it works.
I was gonna say that's gonna suck. No windows or anything. Ugh.
It's comedy right there, though. I mean, it's like they invested in this thing that was supposed to be so like state of the art, and now it's just windowless offices.
It's just the actuaries. It's just the Hollywood Studios actuaries that are in this building.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. What a disappointment.
I think that sums it up. All right, guys. Any other ideas on what to do with that land before we call it a night?
No.
I got nothing.
All right. Well, thanks as always for playing along. If you listen to this one and want to leave your thoughts in the comments, I think we would love to hear some feedback from the clubhouse.
Or you could join our Facebook page.
Well, in order to comment, you would need to join the clubhouse. I'm sorry. Amy is absolutely correct. There's your segue. Amy?
You can join the Facebook page. It's just DVC Clubhouse, and join in the conversation there. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Phil?
Yeah.
Would you like to invite people to subscribe to our podcast?
She threw it back to Phil. I was not expecting that.
Neither was I. She totally threw me for a loop here. Does this qualify as her not nailing the closing? I just want to make sure we're keeping true with our New Year's resolution.
That was a stumble for sure.
Definitely a stumble.
Not.
Yeah, she's trying to pass this off on me. We know what you're doing here. Well, as long as Amy gave me the opening, if you would like to run on over to Apple Podcast, subscribe, give us a like, 5-star review, we would very much appreciate it.
Even if you hate us, give us a 5-star review. Just let us know that you're here. Kathleen?
No press is bad press, Kathleen.
Oh, you guys.
Well, I guess we'll just DVC you real soon.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
And so our journey comes to an end.
Oh, no, please, can't we go back to page 1 and do it all over again?
Started this thing together, and that's how we'll finish it.
Because that, my friends, is where the magic lives.